Hello everyone, I'm speaking from the headquarters of Provis in Abu Dhabi. I have with me a very special guest, the man at the helm of the brand, HP Aengaar, Chief Executive Officer of Provis. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Let's dive right in.
Great to be part of this conversation. Thanks so much for having me, Marisha.
And so I want to know about your mission when Provis was launched, and what were the goalposts that were set, and what were you looking at?
Very excited to talk about our organization and everything we've accomplished so far. When I think about Provis and how we were born as an organization, and this is back in 2019, at that point in time, if you looked at the industry, there were clear gaps that we identified. So we realized that the state of customer service in the industry wasn't particularly great. We realized that there was very little innovation, especially deployment of technology in the real estate services industry. And then when it came to elements such as transparency for our customers, in terms of whether they were truly getting what they were paying for and what they were engaging for, that wasn't very clear either. And so we saw that there was a real opportunity to provide something differentiated when it came to property services. And so that's how Provis was conceived. And in particular, if I reflect on sort of the four elements that underpinned the mission of Provis and what would make it truly differentiated and lend an identity to the organization, they were centered on customer centricity, on agility, on accountability, and on collaboration. And I'd like to talk a little bit about each of these elements. So if we talk about customer centricity, at a very fundamental level, customer centricity is about delighting the customer in everything that they experience from an organization. And for us, it was no different. But the idea was to not just look at the customer journey and say, hey, how do you make this as seamless and smooth and friction-free as possible? But it was also about being a bit more proactive and looking at, look, this industry has been doing things a certain way for a long period of time. Can we actually be a bit more creative, identify some of the gaps, and truly be proactive in coming up with a new customer journey and a new way of doing business and serving their customers that was not being done before. So that was the notion of customer centricity for us. When it came to agility had two facets as far as we were concerned. One facet of agility was resilience. We know that in the property services industry, a lot of unexpected things can happen. And we were proven right, when the pandemic took place in 2020. And so in these types of challenging situations, a property services organization is the first line of defense, for example, for a community. And we're so close to people's personal spaces. And so it is our responsibility to keep the community safe, engaged, to overlook their health and wellness, and so on and so forth. So that's one aspect of agility, and that's something that we believed we could do in a very, very different and more effective manner. The other aspect of agility is around innovation, and bringing into play technology was going to be a very big part of that. If you look at the real estate industry in general, over the past century, productivity change has been minimal. And so the idea was, how do you bring in technology to truly disrupt and upend the way things are being done today? How do you, make every aspect of transacting, easier? How do you pay your rent? How do you request for services? How do you book amenities? And more recently, how do you even, frankly, buy or lease, a property or a space at the click of a button without having to ever show up in person anywhere? So all of these things have been dramatically changing the industry, and we believe that we could be at the forefront of driving that change. So the second element was agility. The third element was around accountability. Accountability was going to be around taking ownership and responsibility and truly being fiduciaries and representatives of our landlords' and customers' interests. But more importantly, it was about driving transparency. So how do we ensure that we have in place clear, transparent governance protocols, reporting mechanisms, and so on, that allows our customers, our landlords, and our stakeholders to get a transparent view of what's happening and how they're being served. I think that was a missing piece, in the industry in general, and that's something that we were able to put in place. And the last piece of it was around collaboration. Collaboration, again, at a very fundamental level, is about how people come together and work together. So for us, it was that. When it came to how our colleagues came together and delivered services through a unique and distinctive culture, it was also much more than that. It was about how we as an organization collaborated with the communities that we serve and with society at large, including government stakeholders and regulators. And that's something that we believed was not happening sufficiently at that point in time. So these 4 elements we believed were true differentiators. And so we put those in place in conceiving Provis. And we think that over the last 4 years of our journey and lifespan, the kinds of things that we've demonstrated and achieved speak to those values. And we're truly proud of what we are as an organization as a result of that.
So you're coming on to your anniversary in a month, and what was your journey like? What has it been like in these last 4 years? Could you summarize it for us?
If I were to, use one phrase to summarize the journey over the last 4 years, it's been a journey of highs, really compelling milestones, and multiple keystone achievements. We were born in 2019, and we were a humble organization of about 150 staff. Today, we're 1,000 plus colleagues. And so obviously we've scaled quite significantly in that period of time. This would have not been possible if not for the hard work and efforts of the team, but also if it had not been embraced by our customers and supported by them, as well as if our shareholders had not invested in us and our strategic vision. So it's been a journey where we've been truly blessed in terms of how far we've come. In terms of the specific milestones, we were born in 2019, and we started establishing ourselves in terms of our institutional capabilities. We started, with a humble beginning in terms of our service offerings. And by the time 2020 came around, we had the pandemic that hit us. So the pandemic was really a coming of age moment for Provis. As the first lines of defense for our communities, we were thrown in the deep end when it came to, managing the needs of our residents, of our tenants actually in our office communities, where some of the office communities continued on and soldiered on even when the pandemic was at its peak. And so at that point in time, the way we worked with that entire ecosystem and safely and seamlessly managed some of the challenges that were thrown at us, that's something that I'm very proud of, but it also truly showed that we can be a strong and resilient organization. 2021 was our year of scale up. If we grew up in terms of a maturity in 2020, in 2021 we grew up in terms of size. So we had our first set of acquisitions, which truly put us on the map. So we diversified away from our home market of Abu Dhabi, and we truly established a pan-national presence in 2021. 2022 has been a year of consolidation. As at the end of last year, we're managing in excess of 75,000 residential units across the UAE. We manage about 600,000 square meters of commercial space, including a large chunk of the Grade A office space in Abu Dhabi. And we're managing 600,000 plus square meters of retail space, including a super regional mall here in Abu Dhabi, which is Yas Mall. And, such a large real estate footprint that we currently manage makes us probably one of the largest players in the market. I think we are probably the biggest player in the country today. And that's an achievement we're very, very proud of. Along the way, our customer service scores are at some of the highest levels in the industry. Our operational KPIs are at the upper end of the spectrum. So lots of milestones to celebrate, lots that we're grateful for, and that would have not been possible without the support from the entire stakeholder ecosystem.
Great. You've seen Provis through all these years. So what was your most unexpected early learning, and how have you applied this lesson since?
So when I looked at Provis, or when I looked at this opportunity of setting up something like Provis, one of the first things that jumped out at me was you look at the market and you see how fragmented the market is. And you look at, the level of customer service that's out there, or the level of deployment of technology, and some of these elements. And we talked about it, the core elements of our values and our DNA and what makes our mission unique. We identified those gaps, and so that was clear to me. And so on that basis, we said, look, we can build this organization at scale that leverages technology to provide exceptional customer service. And so set about, achieving that mission in right earnest. Now, as we started acquiring entities, we realized that, look, there are challenges in terms of integrating processes, in terms of integrating systems, and so on and so forth. But these are largely solvable processes, meaning you can bring them together. You'll eventually have one unified system, a completely streamlined corporate governance framework, and so on and so forth. But the hardest part is about ensuring that you have a homogeneous and unified culture. Values drive behaviors. Behavior drives culture. Culture is what determines how you treat your people, how you treat your customers, and how you treat the market. And the market respects an organization with a strong culture. So when we brought together multiple organizations, for example, as part of our acquisition drive, one of the biggest challenges was, how do you bring people from different backgrounds with different sets of values and therefore with a different set of behavior together to form one unique, distinct culture that would be respected by the market and that would truly offer something differentiated. That was the most unexpected thing and challenging thing that I encountered. And that remains a work in progress, but that, I believe, is what is going to truly distinguish us when that work is truly perfected.
You mentioned values and culture. I would like to understand what is your approach when you're trying to make Provis a market leader, and lessons that you can share from your leadership style.
So as leaders, we need to role model. So personally for me, I hold myself accountable to ensuring that I role model all of these values on a daily basis. If I need to roll up my sleeve and make a call to an angry customer and take care of an issue, I will do it. If there is a problem with two team members not working together, it is my responsibility to ensure that we get our heads together. There's no problem that cannot be solved. It just takes will, and it takes this mentality of ensuring that we support one another. So this is what I mean when I say culture. The day we all start living our values, automatically we will start to display a certain type of uniqueness in our approach and a certain DNA in the culture.
That's a great life lesson, actually. So thank you for that. And I want to now understand your approach to the built environment, from a leadership style to approaching the built environment. So what is your competitive advantage that you're trying to imbue in Provis?
So our competitive advantage is our scale, which automatically allows us to invest into technology. It allows us to bring in best practices from around the globe, and it allows us to bring the best and the brightest people into our teams to ensure that we provide, the most distinctive service to our customers. There are very few competitors or players out there in the market who can boast the same scale and capabilities. I think that's the biggest differentiator in terms of what we bring to the table. And this, I think, will continue to be the case going forward, with the industry getting regulated further, with technology becoming a more powerful force in terms of how services get delivered, and customers becoming, frankly, a lot more demanding, which requires much greater proactivity from service provider standpoint. And with landlords becoming a lot more informed and sophisticated in terms of the way contracts are structured, the way business is conducted. Players who are large, institutionalized, who can invest into technology and who can invest into good quality talent. These are the players that are going to come out on top. And from that lens and perspective, I'd say we're very much at the vanguard of the industry.
Great, thank you for that insight. To just close off this conversation, you mentioned ESG goals and your strategies for this year. I wanted to understand, how are you looking at this overarching goal that we as a people need to get to in 2050, like net zero by 2050? How are you leading Provis towards that?
So as far as Provis is concerned, we have a very structured ESG program in place. We have clear commitments as well. So in line with our parents' aspirations, we have committed to achieving 60% or more reduction in carbon footprint by 2030 and to be net zero by 2050. And so in line with those commitments, we've already begun to undertake a comprehensive program in terms of ESG. So our ESG program is centered obviously on reducing carbon footprint And so there we've done quite a bit of efforts across our communities. Compared to the 2018 baselines, today we're already about 15% lower in terms of our energy consumption, which directly translates to reduction in carbon footprint. And it also has the happy side effect of reducing service charges on our owners, which is a benefit that we're very proud of, that we provided to our customers. But in addition to that, we're looking at retrofits and larger capex investments into energy reduction projects, and so that's continuing. We also look at obviously waste management as part of that, but that's on the environment side. But more interestingly, we've done quite a bit of work with our communities on the social side. So we believe that the built environment is not just about the physical infrastructure; it's also about the human side of things. And so we believe that looking at the wellness of our communities, the safety of our communities, and how we engage with our communities, given their diversity when it comes to things like, the various festivals and so on, so events and activation, so everybody feels like they belong. I think that element is something that we've done a very, very good job with. I'd say we're probably the pioneers in the country when it comes to that. And then the third element is, of course, around governance. We earlier talked about, work philosophy and management philosophy. Our management philosophy is firmly anchored on principles of governance and transparency. So the way we're organized as an operating model, the way we, structure our engagements with our customers, just the way our contracts are set up, the way we hold ourselves accountable in terms of, for example, the KPIs we need to deliver against, the way we report transparently against our performance. All of these elements are driven very strongly by our governance ethos. And so ESG is a huge commitment. ESG is much more than carbon. And while we've done a ton of work in terms of, reducing the carbon footprint, we're also very, very proud of the work we're doing in other areas. As a side note, we have probably one of the best ratios when it comes to gender diversity in our leadership team. So at our senior leadership level, I'm very proud to let you know that nearly 50% of our senior leadership is comprised of women. And so that's something we're proud of. We're obviously very proud of the number of UAE nationals that are coming on board. This industry in particular has not seen a lot of UAE national leaders, real estate services. But that's something we're setting out to change. Today, we're partnering with key regulatory bodies here in the country. So we're working with the RERA, we're working with other regulatory bodies to ensure that we train and skill and employ UAE nationals, in positions in property services. So that's something we're very proud of as well. So yeah, ESG is front and center. ESG is one of the pillars of our strategic thrust.
Wow. So thank you so much for giving us the speak into Provis and all this is trying to do. Thank you for this chat with us.
Thank you, Marisha.